Hello and welcome to episode 2 of the Miscast, my little podcast, webcast, mashup type thing. I'm not even really sure what it is, but I'm pleased to say this week I have a guest. Please welcome Tom from Watch That TV, a fellow Instagram account. We've known each other a while. I don't know, maybe a couple of years. Would that be right now?
Yeah, I mean, I've been on the Instagram thing for probably two and a half years now, so we must have known each other at least a year by now, I'd say.
So listener, how it works is if you're serious about growing an Instagram channel, you can of course go it alone, but I think the sensible way and the nice way is to team up with other people that are posting similar content to you, and you can all help each other out, like and comment on each other's content and grow together. So we've been growing together, would be fair to say.
Yeah, it's a good way of putting it.
What was the tell me about the inspiration for starting your account. What was it you were trying to achieve when you set out?
I mean, to be honest, obviously the name Watch That TV, so I've always been more of a TV geek, I guess, than the movies initially. So it was just basically I just watched a lot of stuff, a lot of TV shows, which not everybody that I spoke to, like at work, for example, were watching. So I'd go to work, I'd want to be talking about, I don't know, The Wire, Dexter, whatever I was watching at the time, and no one would have a clue what I was talking about. So
yeah,
I actually started, I don't know if you ever had it on WordPress. Did you ever have that?
No, never. No, never.
Yeah, don't bother. It's fine if you want to write like long essays and long post, but like in terms of interaction, it's just virtually zilch. So I think I was on holiday at one point, and I was like, I already have Instagram, and people like and comment, instantly. It's in the name, isn't it? Instagram. So if I don't know, chuck my love of films and TV on there, who knows? I didn't actually know how many people were doing it as well. I mean, there's a lot more doing it now than when I started it, 2.5 years ago. But that's basically why. I think like most of us, we watch a lot of shit, don't we? So we just want to talk about it.
Tell me a little bit about the man behind the account. Obviously, I know a little bit about you, but let's open it up. Obviously, first thing I think that leaps out at anyone listening, we're both fellow Englishmen.
Yeah, very
which is actually when we do live near to each other. But when I started Instagram, one thing that really took me aback was just how diverse some of the big accounts are. I mean, there's guys from Eastern Europe that have huge movie accounts, guys from Indonesia and Asia with just huge accounts, and you'd never know.
Yeah, I mean, I've noticed, I think most of my following are either from the US or from the Asian sort of Indian side of things. As my bio goes, the fittest TV blogger on earth. I'll stick to that. So I'm a personal trainer for a living, which is quite unusual, I guess, because I'm basically either lifting weights or watching films. To be honest, that's pretty much me.
I don't think that's a bad lifestyle as far as lifestyles go.
No, it's good. It's keeps me healthy, keeps me active during quarantine.
Yeah, I mean that's the unfortunate situation, isn't it? The likelihood that gyms are going to be one of the last things to open back up is probably pretty likely, unless of course, and I'm sure most gyms are pretty clean, but you'd have to have someone like on constant rotation, just going around cleaning up after people.
Well, about probably 2 weeks before we closed, that was pretty much all we was doing, because I work in a corporate bank, so they're obviously very keen on their employees. So from probably 3 or 4 weeks before the lockdown, they were sending people to work from home, so that it was just getting quieter and quieter, and pretty much all we was doing was just cleaners by the end of it, because there was no members in there to train or speak to or anything.
I think that's fascinating that a company would be big enough to have its own gym, and it kind of makes sense. It's kind of an obvious thing that you would imagine would happen, but it just never really occurred to me. How nice. So I presume they don't have to pay memberships. That's all perk of the job.
Well, they do pay memberships, but it's definitely a lot cheaper than you would pay. Say if you went to like a public Nuffield Health, for example, it'd be a lot dearer than the Nuffield Health they're paying for in their own building. And generally, they're all earning a pretty good wage, so they're in a good position, and which obviously makes my job easier as well.
I have a love-hate relationship with the gym.
Where are you at the minute then?
Well, at the minute, obviously, I'm not going, but I've been really good in quarantine. I eat in a very specific way. I don't really, carbohydrate does not agree with me, so I try to avoid sugar and carbs. Although, normally I will find myself having my head turned fairly often, but since we've had this lockdown conditions, I've eaten really well.
Good.
And I just weighed myself a second ago in my studio. I'm in my studio, listener, and my studio is a very minimalist, very clean, nice environment to work in. But I ordered myself a pair of scales some time ago just because. And I opened them for the first time today, and I was very pleased with the results. So
Okay.
I shall keep saying there's every chance I could have quarantine abs by the time this is all over.
You know what? I think I'm definitely turning from a weightlifter to a runner, that's for sure, and a yogi. All I'm doing is running and yoga.
You're right. Yes, that's a new thing for me as well. I'm probably about a week into my yoga journey, but I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, loving it.
It's good.
Actually loving it.
All of our listeners right now are probably going, "What on earth have I?"
Yeah, is this a movie podcast?
So the account is Watch That TV.
Yeah.
What were the big shows when you were growing up? What were you into?
I guess The Wire's probably the first standout. I mean, the first season of The Wire, I think, was all the way back in 2002.
We've kind of leapt in with what I think might actually be one of the best television shows ever made. We've gone in right. We've gone straight there. I think it's a masterpiece. Yeah, I think it's a masterpiece.
I mean, I always use that as like the benchmark for any other shows. To be honest, that is definitely my number one. I've actually gone through it all 3 times. Would you believe?
Do you know what? I've only been through it once, and I'm keen to go again. And I think what I'm going to do is probably try and get my hands on the Blu-rays so that the best quality this time, because certainly the first time I watched it, it might have been downloaded and been of variable quality. But one thing that leaps out at me about that show is just how brave it is, in the sense that second season felt like a completely different show to me.
So the second season, that was the one with the what's his name? Worked at the docks, wasn't it?
Well, to the docks. Yeah, we don't want to get deep into spoilers, but it shifts completely from what it was in the first season to it still covers. It's still the same world that it was in season 1, but season 2 just shifts its attention to something almost completely different, and you realise it's a show about economics almost. The economics of a city with, an incredible amount of issues, which I'm sure most cities do. But, the poverty and the crime, the gun crime in Baltimore, the gangland crime is obviously at such an intense level. I just thought it was the most incredible look at every level of the economics in a city, from Joe Public to crime, to the people that are policing the crime, to the lines that are blurred between the crime and the law.
Well, it makes sense.
Politicians.
I remember reading once that I think it's David Simon and someone else behind it, but I think one of them was actually either a police officer or some part of law enforcement, and the other was part of the. He was a journalist for one of the local newspapers. So
yes, I think I remember.
It makes a lot of sense, as to why the show was so detailed and realistic.
Complete. It can only come from something like that. I can imagine would only come from a place of someone witnessing it and going, I've got to document this somehow.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, and there's so many parts of that. Like, I was talking to there's another guy on Instagram, Lulu reviews that I speak to, and we always talk about some of the deaths from the show. Obviously, we won't talk about it now, but just how, them TV show deaths that you never forget.
Yes.
And there's plenty of those from The Wire, that's for sure.
It's a great show, and definitely highly recommended. And actually, I'm trying to think of others which I can think. The Sopranos is obviously well up there for me. I'm sure it is for you as well.
Well, again, funny you say that, because I probably had the Sopranos box set. I think my mum may have bought it for me about 5 years ago, and I only dusted it off, even unwrapped it during quarantine, at the start of quarantine. So,
oh wow! So you're in the midst of it now.
I'm currently going through season 1. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, brother, you're on a journey.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've seen 4 or 5 episodes so far.
Yeah, and what are your thoughts at this early stage?
One question: him and obviously speaking to the therapist quite a lot so far. Does that kind of like continue throughout? That he's always talking to the therapist throughout the whole season, or is that such a big aspect?
I don't think it will become to be such an integral part of each episode, the way he's recounting and talking to her. They're not afraid to mix it up and make it something else. There was a show years ago. What was it called? In something. I have the box set at home, and it was all set within a psychiatry office, and people would come in and just talk about their issues and then go again. And it was only about those conversations between the therapist and the subject.
Right. I'm not sure what that was.
Was it Gabriel Byrne, was it? I don't know. I will look it up. I'll put it in the show notes. But yeah, you're on a journey, my friend. That show is a real winner, and possibly the most incredible ending to anything.
Well, I feel like I've watched every great show there is, apart from The Sopranos.
Do you know how it ends?
I literally have no idea.
Dude, you're in for a treat. And I think the only possible thing now, you just need to binge and get to that point.
It's hard because I'm binging so much at the minute, naturally, because I'm not at work. So.
Yeah.
So I've just been watching the first 7 episodes of Gangs of London. I don't know if you've been watching that, but I'd recommend.
Yeah, no, it's on my. I haven't seen it yet. It's on my list. I have a WhatsApp group of lads that I'm in. I'm sure everybody's in a group of some sort of group, or in multiple groups. If you're really popular, I'm just in one. And they were talking it up the other day, saying it's genuinely brutal. It's Gareth Edwards as well, and he does action fairly well. So I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah, I mean, the action's brilliant. Someone showed me one review. I think this person must have just watched the first episode. Apparently, they said it was like EastEnders versus The Raid, which I definitely do not agree with.
Yeah, listen, if you don't know what EastEnders is, it's a British cornerstone show of television, soap opera. I mean, I haven't seen it in years. The theme tune is very iconic. But it would be close to any British person would be close to their heart in some way, shape or form.
It's a lot better than that though. Don't worry.
Yeah. Shall we, we've both appealed for some questions from our followers. I think you had some more interesting questions than maybe I received. I got an interesting one here, which is, does every villain need a sad backstory?
Wow. A sad backstory.
Let me widen it and ask you, who is your favourite villain that you can think of?
I mean, off the cuff, Javier Bardem in No Country for Old Men. He doesn't even have a backstory. It's just.
It was terrifying.
Yeah, just so menacing and just mysterious, and obviously,
and relentless.
And Bardem is obviously just so watchable anyway. But I don't know. I don't necessarily think they need a sad back. Sometimes a relatable backstory is quite interesting. I quite liked Michael B. Jordan in Black Panther. Mm-hmm. Just because you sort of understood his story a little bit.
My least favourite Marvel movie, by the way, really? Controversial. My least favourite.
Any particular reason why?
I just didn't. I was watching it, just thinking, what is the fuss about with this movie?
To be fair, I did see it twice in cinemas. First time I sort of bought into my own expected hype, and then I watched it again and I was like, okay, it's not what I thought it was, but it's still all right.
The barometer for me was I watched it with my son, and my son was just like, it's okay. It's okay. And, you know, he's 10 years old, generally kind of loves everything that's Marvel related. So,
okay.
I think for me, a villain, the fun part of a villain is when they occupy some kind of grey area where actually there's a big part of them that you're almost rooting for. A great example would be Darth Vader. He's one where, okay, obviously at the end you could argue he goes through this redemption cycle, and ends up being a hero in some way. But he still had this grey area where is he good? We're rooting for him. Blah blah blah. Who would else be a great example of that? Walter White in Breaking Bad is probably the best example.
Yeah, that's a great one actually.
Although he's not, he isn't the out and out villain, of course, but he does walk that line at times. Well,
yeah, I mean he turns into it, but like we were saying, like it's almost relatable in a way. You can see why, you know, if you're watching something, you can understand why someone is doing what they're doing. Yeah, that definitely helps in terms of understanding why they're the villain.
That's a great show. I would love to go back and do that again. I have them all on Blu-ray.
Yeah, so do I actually.
Where's the time? We say where's the time, but then we're in this lockdown situation. Tell me a typical day for you. Are you getting up and just going straight to the couch and watching a? I'm
trying to get up at the same sort of time every day, between maybe sort of 7 and 8, and then I'm doing yoga with one of my colleagues at work via Zoom every morning, or most mornings.
Where were we all before Zoom?
House party.
Oh, that's the other app. Yeah.
But then apparently that was stealing people's data, but then apparently that wasn't true. But I don't know. I think that died a death quite quickly. Corporate
mind games going on. Corporate mind games. I may have to hit you up for some additional like yoga pointers.
I mean, I'm definitely not a yoga expert. I'm just I'm taking the advice from the experts at the minute, but I'm just following it. But yeah, definitely yoga in the morning. I'm trying to run 3 or 4 times a week. Definitely trying to watch. It's hard. Like I want to watch like the classic films and whatnot, and then I'm like, am I in the mood for a 2.5 hour Akira Kurosawa epic, or do I want to watch an hour of Gangs of London?
Yeah. Very true. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think also, you know, I'm trying to get into the world of video essays. Check me out, youtube.com. But it's just so saturated. There's so many people doing really, really quite great video essays, and you watch them and you just, it does feel like sometimes the pressure is there to be a real cinephile.
Yeah.
And do you know what? If you want to watch Dumb and Dumber, go and watch Dumb and Dumber. Not every movie needs to take you on this incredibly cerebral journey or have a very, very definitive message. You know, movies should be escapism, ultimately.
Yeah.
And I mean, if there was ever a time that we needed escapism,
I think someone actually asked a question to me as well. You know, what are your sort of go-to just for fun sort of guilty pleasure movies?
Mm-hmm.
I think we actually had this conversation before. I think we both agreed that Bohemian Rhapsody a couple of years ago wasn't obviously the best film technically in the world, but it was just a lot of fun, wasn't it?
That's a lot of fun.
A lot of fun, good music.
Dumb and Dumber would be in that list. I didn't just pluck it from nowhere. That was one of my go-to. I must have watched it hundreds of times. I could quote it all day long, and I must do some more misquotes for my account. I don't know why I've let that slip.
Yeah, I mean, mate, we live for them misquotes. we've been missing them, definitely.
It's very, very sweet of you to say. All right, fine. I will do the next one I do will be just for you.
Well, I should probably give you some suggestions, actually, shouldn't I?
All my DMs are always open to suggestions and people saying hi. So to go back to our question, does every villain need a sad backstory? I don't think so. I think it's interesting if there is some element of or depth to their character. I think that's good. Definitely in a TV show as well, because I think a TV show, I'm watching Handmaid's Tale at the moment, and while it is very feminine in its storylines and the kind of things that it puts out there, I think there are some really interesting characters that walk that line. You know,
which season are you on at the minute? I've seen, I think, the first 2.
I've just wrapped up season 2, and I'm just deciding whether to go straight into season 3, or if perhaps I should have a little break and do Mr. Robot. I've got Mr. Robot all queued up, ready to go.
You haven't started that, no?
Have not started it, no. So I'm going to start from season 1.
Yeah, that is a show that just gets, or did get, better and better. So you're going to enjoy that most definitely.
Good. I'm looking forward to it. So let's move on. Any other questions we've got here? So from my followers, I've got, what was the worst casting decision of all time?
Wow, that's
it's pretty deep. What are your thoughts of Jared Leto as the Joker?
Very not very memorable at all, actually.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's just because he didn't seem, from what I remember of Suicide Squad, I had quite high hopes, but I just don't remember him doing anything in the film, to be honest. Did he even have much screen time? Well, he didn't, did he? I
don't think anyone did. That movie was just so overloaded.
It was scatty,
overloaded.
Wasn't it?
It was all over the place. Although it's gonna have a second crack of the whip. So under James Gunn, there's going to be a Suicide 2. I don't know whether it's a reboot or not.
I recently watched Blade Runner 2049 as well, and his character in that is always my slight nitpick as well. Is like his sort of motivations. I liked his performance. I just thought they maybe slightly wasted his character. I would have liked more. That's probably what I'm getting at, to be honest.
It's quite mysterious, wasn't it? Very mysterious.
Yeah, I rewatched it last week. The film is like, it's like porn, really, isn't it? For a movie bucks, it's ridiculous.
So I had a new TV delivered at the weekend, and it's my first OLED TV, and it was a very, I don't know if it was the most sensible purchase, considering there's no work around for the foreseeable future. But it was a treat. You know, we're stuck at home. We're gonna watch some films, and my God, I mean the picture.
What have you seen on it so far?
Oh, what have I not seen? I've done all the John Wicks.
Oh, good.
So I did that over the weekend. They look fantastic in 4K HDR. And Dunkirk, I tried showing my son Dunkirk last night, because some of the scenes are letterboxed, and then every so often it goes full height and uses the full height of the screen where they've shot it in. I'm not sure if it was IMAX or the Arri 65. I can't remember what the name of the camera is, but it just looks incredible. And yeah, I'm sort of watching it, nodding to myself in enthusiasm, and then looking over my son.
Looking at your son to see if he's got the same appreciation.
Yeah, he's like, it's okay. It's not Black Panther, is it? So
funny about John. I'm actually watching the John Wick films in reverse order. Would you believe?
Okay, that's interesting.
The first,
because I'm pretty sure they run directly into each other.
Yeah, it's just because number 3 came out in cinemas, and I hadn't seen the first 2, but I thought, by the trailer looked so good that I thought I had to see it. So I saw 3, and then I think 2 was on either Amazon Prime or Netflix. So I've watched that. One's the only one I haven't seen. Funnily enough.
One's brilliant because you kind of you see where it all starts and why it started, and it's a good movie. Let me know what you think. They're all the same. They're all kind of the same level, really. So yeah, I've been enjoying my TV. Going back to the question of terrible casting, what do you think about people playing roles where they should be from an ethnic background and then being replaced by white people? Perfect example would be Emma Stone in Aloha.
Which I haven't seen, to be honest.
She's neither Hawaiian nor Chinese, basically.
I mean, I do find it a little bit bizarre. that these studios can't find good enough actors. I'm sure they can find good enough actors, but I guess they're too tempted towards the bigger
Star
names.
power, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's star power. It's at least giving your film a bit of a boost in the sense that we have a name attached to it. So this person has a fan base, so they'll come and see it. That's the hope, I guess.
I mean, I'm too laid back to personally get annoyed at any of these choices, but I do understand.
You do feel like a very laid back character. I like that about you.
It's understandable though, because there's surely good enough actors out there to play the roles that would fit the roles much better. Like, I know a lot of people were annoyed that Scarlett Johansson was the choice for Ghost in the Shell, wasn't it, a few years ago?
I actually watched that just last night because that also looks pretty good in 4K.
Any good?
Yeah, I love it. I mean, it's flawed in loads and loads of ways, but sometimes movies just need to be silly, just a bit silly.
What size screen did you get?
I got a 65-inch.
60. Yeah,
screen.
come on. Most things on 65 are going to look pretty good, aren't they?
Exactly, especially her in a weird cyber cat suit thing. Very easy on the eye. Very easy on the eye. I think if you're at peace with the idea that movies, we like to think that they're art and they should be art, but there is also a huge business side to them. And, that's why we have other movies which are troubled in their production and they have so much promise, but they don't always end up to be what we hope and anticipate they will be, just because there's so much riding on them.
Yeah, of course, they're entertainment pieces and, people want to get bums on seats. I mean, I was probably one of the few that didn't love or absolutely love the recent Joker movie. I don't know what your thoughts were on that, but I don't know. I was watching it just thinking, I feel like they've just put the Joker name on this just to get bums on seats, to be honest.
No, I totally agree. I think it was a really great commentary on mental health at a time when mental health was at its peak interest from people. It should always be in the conversation. And I found that Joaquin was just Joaquin. He was. I mean, he was the same role. I'd seen him in other movies, Unhinged, and I think I preferred his unhinged performance in other films actually. So
I just remember getting I got a lot of hate on my on my review of it at the time, but I mean, what can you do? People expect everyone to have the same opinion. But I like, his performance was great, but I just thought the film was a little more shallow, or not as deep as it thought it was. Was my main gripe, but I mean,
I'd agree with that. If all of the Batman lore and world building was taken out of it, what would we be left with?
Yeah, not many people would go to see an unhinged guy causing mayhem if he didn't have the Joker name attached to it, right? So
what was the movie he did before? Is it I Was Never Really There? You're Never Really There? I can't remember. It was Lim Ramsey.
You Were Never Really Here.
You Were Never Really Here. Okay,
great,
so
great film.
It's a great film. I saw it at the Curzon Bloomsbury, I think, and Lynn Ramsey did a Q&A afterwards.
Oh, wow.
And it was really interesting to hear her speak. I don't know whether I necessarily loved the movie because it was just so brutal. And it just kind of leaves you a bit limp and numb at the end.
It doesn't give you many kind of answers for like his backstory and things like that, but I actually bought the book after watching the film.
Oh, wow. It really left its mark on you.
The ending absolutely killed me because obviously for that split second, you think what happens actually happened. Well, I did anyway. And it absolutely ended me. But yes, I bought the book. The book's not even 100 pages long that the film's based on. So she actually fleshed it out even more than the book. So that's why in the film, I guess, there's not so much in the way of backstory to his character.
Yeah.
But in terms, performance-wise, intense as you'd expect. Same as Joker, The Master, ridiculous.
Listen, it was an interesting movie. I didn't share the hype for it that others did. But I'm pleased. I'm pleased it won the awards that it did, and got the recognition that it got. And I think variety is the spice of life.
Yeah, I'm on board with that.
Pick out a question from one of your followers. Let's go there.
Favorite porno actually came in. I don't know what that's got to. I mean, it's technically movie.
I mean, to choose just one would be.
I don't know if they meant porno movies about porno. I mean, Boogie Nights pretty good.
Boogie Nights is a great movie. Really great movie.
It actually made me think of how much I like The Girl Next Door. Do you remember that one?
I don't think I've seen that one.
With,
hang on a second.
Alicia Cuthbert and Emil Hirsch.
Right, and she's a porn starlet, and he's just a dude who doesn't realise, right?
And it's a good cast. Paul Dano, isn't it? What's his name? Timothy Olyphant. I think that's how you pronounce his name.
Oliphant.
Something like that. He's like the villain. It's a good
if
film.
you know, listener, hit the comments. I want to see how you type out how it's pronounced.
But yeah, that's a good film. Films most looking forward to later in the year / next year. I mean, I don't know when any films are coming out now. But
where are we at with that? Isn't that insane?
It is.
I mean, how are they gonna get around it?
Because I know, Tenet was due July, I think, but we haven't heard. Have you heard anything since then? If it's getting pushed back?
No, I think the last story I read. Yeah, the last story I read, that Christopher Nolan said he's happy for that movie to be released in July, if it can open in the cinemas.
Yeah.
In the movies. Now, the caveat to that would be that I'd imagine the circumstances will be that every other seat or every other couple of seats will have to be left vacant. So you can sit together with the party that you come with, but then there must be a gap of at least a couple of seats between you, which, I suppose if you're used to going to the cinema during the day, which I am, that won't be a big deal for you.
Thing, though.
No, but if you're a studio, I mean, they're going to have to put on more screenings. If you're a cinema, I mean, it really could decimate the cinema industry, and talk of some chains already in financial trouble. Yeah, which I think is just such a huge shame. But things change. Could this death knell for some cinema chains just mean that streaming reinforces its place in our lives now?
I mean, I don't know, because I was saying the other day, as soon as they're open, I'm going to be one of the first ones back in the door. I don't know about you, but I feel like people.
What would you like to see first out of all the movies that have been? I think I was most looking forward to James Bond.
Okay. Well, yeah, I bought my tickets about a month early for that as well, before all of this lockdown stuff. So
have you had a refund, or are you still?
Yes, my £5 was refunded, which is because I pay for the monthly Cineworld pass, so I think the £5 was just to watch it on the old super screen.
Those passes are brilliant. Yeah. I've often been tempted by one. However, what are you doing now? I presume that's frozen now.
Yeah, they've basically frozen it all, which is fine. But no, they're well worth it. I mean, realistically, whichever one you go for, you've only got to probably see 2 films a month to get your money's worth. So I definitely recommend that. I mean, Tenet was probably my number one that I was looking forward to.
Technically, you still might see that come July.
I just don't know when anything's out. I mean, I saw the Green Knight trailer recently. Have you seen that from David Lowery?
No.
That looks...
No, I need to check that out.
Perfect trailer, because it teases, but it doesn't really give anything away at all.
I'm actually not one for trailers, so it is not uncommon for me to put my fingers in my ears and shut my eyes when they're on, because I don't really see the value in them. They very, very rarely tell an accurate picture of what a movie's about. And frankly, I don't feel like I really need to know.
So what gears you towards what film you want to watch then?
Okay, so whatever filmmakers are involved, I will be a massive motivation for me. And that extends to even the cinematographer. So I'm quite geeky about cameras. So if Roger Deakins, for example, was on a movie with an unknown director, that's probably enough for a whole, masses of people. But I'm just trying to give you an example of, I would follow a cinematographer's work, director, obviously, actors. Certainly, I've got my favourites. But then, I'll check out a synopsis or listen to the buzz around a film if a film's getting talked up a lot.
Yeah.
So, I won't deny there's often things that will come out that that haven't been on my radar, but that's mostly because I just like to try and keep the surprise.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I just can't help it. If there's a trailer that I love, I'll watch it 20 times before
Sure.
I see the film. It depends on if sometimes the trailers can give too much away, but.
Event movies, I think, are an exception. So, Tenet, I 100%, watched that.
Yeah.
Mainly because I know that a director like Christopher Nolan is probably not going to spoil his
too
movie.
Much away, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. The Last Jedi, that straight away I watched that, sent that on to my brother. Same with Rise of Skywalker.
Did you enjoy Rise of Skywalker?
I did not.
Yeah,
Rise of Skywalker irritated me within about 5 seconds of the rolling scroller text thing at the beginning. I think it opens with Emperor Palpatine has returned, and I literally just went. Well, I won't say what I thought, but yeah, that it irritated me from that words, that sentence.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not the biggest Star Wars fan in the world, but I just felt cringed out probably for 3/4 of that film.
Yeah, clear example of where it can't deliver under the expectation.
Yeah.
And not only that, you have the corporate interference as well. So you could put the best creative minds on it, but if they're at odds with the corporate overlords, then already that creates a conflict. So you could have this massive budget with this incredibly popular franchise, and it was just destined to fail, I think, in so many ways.
And it's hard when you've obviously got different directors, or not the same director in all 3 films. So
I think you have to have a plan. Yeah, you have to have a plan. You have to have a plan. You have to have a end game in mind. And I mean, pun intended, if you think about what they did with the Marvel Universe. And actually, I think they only got it right for the last half of those Marvel movies. I don't think I cared as much for the first 10. And I think, how many phases was it? You probably know more than me. Is it 3 phases?
To be honest, I probably don't know more than you. I've actually just started rewatching from the very beginning, because I think some of the first 10, like you mentioned, I don't think I've ever seen.
Yeah, I don't know how. So Marvel fans can correct me. I don't know how they plot it out, but I know there's phases
Marvel
of them.
fans should probably stop listening now.
I apologise. I apologise profusely. But what I would say is that the back end of it was far stronger for me. And if you have one person who's given the task of telling a really expansive story over many, many films, and just trust them with it and just give them the license to be creative, then I think we maybe would have got something far stronger than what we did. Rise of Skywalker is so clearly a compromise and a rescue project that...
It just felt too safe, didn't it?
They pulled it off. Whatever it was they were trying to achieve, it's a coherent, watchable film that works as a conclusion. But the overall plan of what they wanted to achieve, which was to capture the fandom, just didn't work for me.
I'm trying to look at what other questions we got. There's a few. I mean, there's a few like when did you was a cinephile, which is quite a
cinephile. It harks back to those video essays I was talking about, where some of them are a little bit too much, over-analysing and seeing things where there aren't things. So when why don't I reinterpret it? When did you know you loved movies or even TV shows? Which are little movie projects, I suppose.
I mean, yeah. So it probably was more TV shows at first that I just had that sort of addiction with. But then I was actually thinking about it the other day, and I think it's probably why it's still my favorite film. The first time I saw Fight Club, I was probably sort of a youngish teenager, and the concept of like the twist ending and how outrageously good the twist was, I don't think I'd really experienced that before, or really sort of knew that films could do that. And it just,
How old were you at the time?
I mean, probably would have been about, like, in my teens, probably like 14, 15.
Yeah, I think that's the perfect age to start watching films of that ilk, which will lead you in a certain direction and then just totally flip it up at the end, have a twist, and you're left.
Yeah, because up to that point, you're so used
stunned
to films just sort of being tied up in a lovely, neat bow. Anything, I mean, yeah, watching Fight, it was just blew my mind.
Well, I watched The Usual Suspects when I was around the same age, and I remember watching it with no idea where the story was going, what the direction was, or what the outcome was. No one had spoilt it for me, and I was left open-mouthed. I could not believe it. I could not believe the ruse that I'd been sold.
Yeah, how could I have been led down this path and then they ended up somewhere else?
And there's such special moments that you'll never get. I can't think of any other art form. You can be moved by music, of course you can. I just don't know. A book would be a perfect example, but it's a much more slower, long drawn out process. Yeah. I guess you could argue a twist can be delivered in a sentence or two. But that twist for me was special. Fight Club was special.
Yeah.
I think I had hints because I was noticing the flash frames.
Right.
At the time Fight Club came out, I was spending a lot of time in editing. So I just started my career. So I was spotting those flash frames when Tyler was flashing into picture. I thought, okay, something's going on here. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely didn't notice that.
Trying to think of other great movie twists that.
I remember
The Sixth Sense. Did that catch you out?
You know what? I have seen The Sixth Sense, but it was so long ago. I can't remember how I felt watching it. It's one of those. I may have only seen it sporadically. I
would love to do a YouTube video on great plot twists, but the problem is, how do you handle that without ruining it for people?
One that recently really got me good was maybe about 3 years ago. I watched The Prestige for the first time.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's a good one.
That got me good, definitely.
And that's a good opportunity for me to promote my video on the genius of Christian Bale, which is on YouTube. You can find the link in my profile. Yada yada yada.
Very good, very good.
Did you see it, by the way? Did you see it?
I haven't seen your Christian Bale one, but I watched your the one take. I think that was your first one, wasn't it? Or the long take, sorry.
The long take.
That was really good, actually. Really good.
It took so long to do. It really grew arms and legs, and I love doing it. But if YouTube is going to be a viable way for me to generate some side income and just build an audience, then, oh my God, I think I need to get better at it or find a quicker way. I think I get a bit of I become a bit of a perfectionist, which is not very like me. I mean, I like to do things to a very high standard, but I don't think I agonize really over details. But when it comes to those videos, I really do. Don't know why.
I mean, it stood out because, first video, it was the quality was there. Really, really good.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. Any other questions we should hop on to?
Favourite British films? I guess 2 Brits. It's quite a good question.
Very good question. Very good question.
I mean,
so many.
There is so. I wrote a few down. What have I got? I mean, I watched more recently Peeping Tom. I don't know if you've seen that, which is a bit came out same year as Psycho. from
No.
Michael Powell. Highly recommend that. That was pretty mind blowing. The Servant I watched very recently as well. But then you've got the classic, like, I think the first British film that I watched that I was like, I don't really know. I'm probably too young to be watching this, but I really like it. Was Quadrophenia.
Right. Okay.
I must have watched that probably about 8 or 9 years old, but that sticks in my mind.
I remember visiting a friend of mine, and we wanted to watch RoboCop. And at the time, we were all maybe around 10 years old. So his elder brother was there, and he was maybe 12. Me and my friend were both 10, and I think his younger sister was there. And we were like, "Oh, can we watch this movie?" And he's like, "Well," the dad was like, "It's an 18." And we were all like, "Oh," because my parents absolutely would not have let me watch it at the time. So my friend's father goes, "Well, you're 10 and you're 10, that makes 20, and you're 12, so that's 32. You're 8, that's 40. Oh, you're old enough.
More than old enough.
You're more than old enough." And we watched it, and that scene where the guy unfortunately finds himself covered in toxic waste, I think scarred me for my the rest of my child life. Do you remember that scene?
I don't, but I used to be terrible. I used to probably didn't watch a horror film until I was about 20.
Right.
I used to be scared of.
I still hate them.
What was the old Robbie Williams video where his body starts like falling apart? The music video. I can't even remember what.
DJ.
I think that's it. But yeah, even like
it's going round and round.
I used to not even enjoy watching stuff like that. Like,
I think I worked on that music video.
Really?
Back in the day, yeah. Well, I worked with an editor who was really, really talented, and so many great music videos got brought to him, and I would help out. I would assist.
But yeah, well, that's quite funny. But yeah, I used to just avoid anything that would potentially scare me. But I love the old, like, Full Monty still cracks me up. Snatch is obviously a classic.
That was great. Snatch is great.
Rock and Roller.
Layer Cake,
yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's all the Monty Pythons as well. Still absolutely kill me.
So I love The Long Good Friday,
which I haven't seen, unfortunately.
So you need to see it, mainly because it's all set in Greenwich.
Oh yeah.
On the docks there, or the area that was to become Canary Wharf and that area.
Who made that?
I don't remember who the director was, but Bob Hoskins was in the lead.
Yeah.
And you will see a cameo, I say cameo, but I mean a supporting performance from a very, very young Pierce Brosnan. Very young. And yeah, Bob Hoskins plays, I'm going to try and sell it to you now. So Bob Hoskins plays this gangster, East End gangster, who is trying to pull off a property deal, to redevelop the wharf, the docks over there in East London.
Yeah.
And all these things keep happening to him, attacks on his team and assassinations of his squad. And he can't understand what's going on or where it's coming from. And he's just trying everything he can to pull off this deal because he knows it's going to be worth mega, mega money. And it's brilliant. And the soundtrack is this brilliant 80s, 70s synth, just wall of sound. It's almost obnoxious. And the end of it's superb as well. I won't say anything to spoil it, but it's just a great example of an off-the-wall, unique British movie that still to this day I think is great, even though the soundtrack is technically very dated.
The Long Good Friday, yeah?
The Long Good Friday, and there's a particular scene where Bob Hoskins basically portrays 1,000,001 emotions and no words are spoken. It's all done with his facial expressions. It's genuinely brilliant.
All right, that's added to the never-ending list.
What do you think we can expect from your Instagram account? I'll put the details in the description of this and obviously tag you in. But what can we expect from your Instagram posts in the coming weeks? Are you going to be stepping it up? Or are you going to keep things?
I thought I would be stepping it up, but I've been doing more watching than posting.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I do plan on. I put a poll out the other day, so I'm going to try and get out my favourite film scores over the next few days. And also I watched Inarritu's Beautiful the other day, which actually moved me quite a lot, more than expected actually. So I want to try and get a review out on that over this week as well. So
yeah, I was going to ask, like, what's your inspiration for content? Is it really what you want to review, or do you just highlight things that you're interested in? Anything
that strikes a chord when I watch it and, you know, makes me want to talk about it, I'll try and get a review out on it. But that's why I don't really tend to review, you know, the major sort of blockbusters, just because, one, I like to be a bit different. I don't want to post the same thing that everyone else is posting. And then, you know, if something doesn't affect me in a big way, I'll be like, I won't bother reviewing it. What's the point?
You're one of those that if you haven't got something nice to say, you won't bother saying it.
Pretty much. I mean, and, you know, if you see my monthly watch list, I'll rarely watch a film that I rate less than a 7, because I try and avoid films that I'm pretty sure I'm not going to like. I know some people that I follow love torturing themselves, it seems like, but that's not for me.
What reviews do you have coming up? I can guarantee that maybe, you know, a good 10, 15 people might even listen as far as this podcast. So go ahead and pimp what's coming up in the next week or so.
Well, yeah, so definitely a review of Beautiful with Javier Bardem. Again, I think that might be maybe even my preferred performance from him, to be honest.
You seem very taken with Javier. Very taken.
Javier moves me far more than I expected in that film, I have to say. Really, really good in that film. Beautiful. Yeah, definitely my favourite film scores, which is so hard to do because I could probably put 40 or 50 down.
How many Hans Zimmer ones are in there?
It's basically a collection of Zimmer, Bernard Herrmann, John Williams, Cliff Martinez. They make up the bulk of it, that's for sure. To be honest, at the minute, that's all I've got in the pipeline. Beautiful, favourite film scores. It's just, yeah, like I said, whatever I watch and strikes a chord, I will tend to review it. What about yourself? I guess you need them DMs to come flying in, don't you?
No, it's fine. I have plenty of DMs. I think people get quite annoyed and irritated when they send me great ideas, and I go, "That's a great idea," and then I don't make it. I really throw myself into the video content, and I'm enjoying doing that. I'm in between projects at the moment, so I did pull a load of source material to make an examination of Edgar Wright's work, but really there's so many other great clips on there that it would feel a bit disingenuous, like I was really copying and following them, which is not what I want to do. I want to try and make unique, interesting insights.
I forgot, I watched your one about outbreaks as well. Was it outbreaks or
pandemics? Yeah. So that was great timing.
So I think you must have posted about Outbreak the film on there, and then I saw it was on Netflix. So I watched it. It was all right.
Yeah, old school movie.
Good cast. Good cast.
Solid cast. I remember it coming out. I'm old enough to remember it being released. And,
it was just funny to hear the language that they were saying. It was just obviously what we're so used to hearing in the news these days at the minute about self-isolating and quarantine and whatnot. But yeah, good on Netflix if people want to watch that. I'd recommend it. It's good quarantine watch.
Yeah, if you've got to this stage, got this stage in the podcast, and also the lockdown, having not seen those quarantine movies been thrown around somewhere, then yeah, you've done well. I think this is a great place to wrap it up.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for coming and hanging out. Yeah. And that's the second miscast. Do you like the way I've taken the word podcast and made it miscast?
It definitely makes sense. Yeah, I can go with that.
That was very diplomatic.
It's better than watch that cast. So yeah.
The watchcast could work. I like it. Watchcast will work. Okay, so everybody go and follow Tom's Instagram. I will put the link in the description. And yeah, share, like, comment, show us some love. And I don't know, these seem to be working. Maybe I'll do an episode 3.
It's been fun. I'd jump on again if I get the invite.
And I'd happily have you back. We'll open it up to a third person.
Yeah, that'd be great. Let's do it.
I don't know.
Maybe they won't
brilliant.
fancy it after hearing this.
I'll make us look great in the edit.
Yeah, brilliant.
All right, brilliant. Thanks so much, and we'll catch up soon.
Yeah, great. Cheers, Steve. That was good.